For many Americans, politics has become far more personal and divisive than it once was. And now, in the run-up to the November election, that's creating some friction in families. Tonight, Judy Woodruff looks at the impact of politics on marriages, dating, and families as part of her ongoing series, America at a Crossroads.
For the Glasgow family, politics is never too far from home. Whom are you voting for?
I'm going to go with Biden.
I will go for Donald Trump.
Joe Biden, all the way.
Hillary and Matt, who were married 9 years ago, have always butted heads, even making light of it in their wedding vows.
I said that something about still loving him even though he votes wrong.
Yeah.
Because he does.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, we laughed.
Hillary is the executive director of Colorado Winds, a labor union representing more than 24,000 state employees. She's always been a diehard liberal.
No, as long as I can remember, I've been a Democrat.
Her husband, Matt, is on the opposite side. He voted for Donald Trump.
I don't know. He's probably not that nice of a guy. But I think that, overall, his policies probably have my best interests in mind.
And he says he'll vote for him again in November if he's the nominee.
The economy was good. I mean, it was.
Both admit it's led to shouting matches.
It comes out of nowhere.
It comes out of nowhere. It does get heated. We have big fights. We've heard that there are people who are opposite parties and they just avoid the topic. I don't understand how people do that, because politics is a big deal to me. So.
The Glasgows are part of a small minority in America that's growing even smaller. Marriages between Democrats and Republicans. This polarized time when politics have become so personal has led to fewer people dating and marrying people with different views. And it's one factor in a decline in marriages, period, which have dropped by 60% since the 1970s.
People are waiting longer and they're just foregoing marriage. And part of I think the challenge for young adults today is that they're often kind of in different ideological camps.
Brad Wilcox, the director of the National Marriage Project at the University of Virginia, studies the impact of marriage on society.
A much larger share of young women who are in the sort of progressive camp. It's more than doubled since the early 1980s of women who are kind of identifying as liberal in that 18 to 30 bracket. And then you've seen a modest uptick in the share of young men who are single who are identifying as conservatives. There are a lot of issues that are kind of dividing Americans now, and that makes it harder for people who are Republican to sort of live with their Democratic, family members and vice versa.
Political tension wasn't something Carol from Michigan expected to face with her husband.
The day after the election in 2016, my husband was working in Italy, and I called him because I've never been political. I'm just an anti-news kind of artsy gal. And I called him and said, Hillary lost. And I was absolutely in tears. And he said, well, of course she should have. And I was like, uh-oh, here we go. And that was the beginning of realizing what his beliefs were versus mine.
In an effort to find support after Trump's election, she started a private Facebook group, Wives of the Deplorables, a tongue-in-cheek name drawing on a comment by Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton in 2016. A handful of the group's 175 members spoke to us, but didn't want to use their last names.
I think that politics weren't discussed as intensely, at least in my experience, before the 2016 election. I think that I knew he was a Republican, I was a Democrat. I had no idea that these are some of the beliefs that he had, and that's very hard to stomach.
Most of these mixed political marriages have survived, while some ended in divorce. But the 2016 election was a turning point for them all.
I needed other women to talk to help, who are in similar situations, to help talk me through it, to figure out strategies to get to, common ground again.
If you look at the group, you will hear a lot of pain that women are struggling to be able to maintain their relationships. And in some cases, they're not able to continue. And this is the way of the world right now. with friends, with relatives, polar opposites, different silos, not willing or able to listen to each other.
These political tensions aren't just with married couples. Brad Wilcox says many young Americans are choosing to only date people with the same political views. A recent survey found 81% of respondents would prefer not to date across the aisle when it comes to serious relationships. That's a poll published by Newsweek last year.
So there's an undersupply of liberal men for liberal women, and there's an undersupply of conservative women for the conservative men. We are seeing a larger minority of folks having difficulty finding someone who, fits their worldview.
The Glasgow's 22-year-old daughter, Chloe Chigro, a college student, is one of those young people.
So I think it really is a case-by-case basis.
So there are issues that you would say if somebody has a different view from me on this, that would matter.
Absolutely. Reproductive rights, LGBTQ plus rights, immigrant rights, really just like if people of color, like Black Lives Matter, that's a really important movement for me.
I think conservatives definitely need to stick together.
John McEntee, a political advisor who served in the Trump administration, created a dating app for conservatives called The Right Stuff.
We're sorry that you've had to endure years of bad dates and wasted time with people that don't see the world our way.
We knew there could be a market for it, so we took it to an investor. He loved the idea, and that was 2 years ago, and we're off and running.
Do you think that's good for all of us in the long run to be separated this way?
If you match up in this day and age and you don't agree on a lot of the main themes and the main values, it's going to end poorly and maybe in disaster. So stay away from that.
But Brad Wilcox says in the past, mixing politics and relationships has been beneficial to society.
Marriage has tended to sort of bridge the sexual divide, has tended to bring men and women together on a number of different fronts, including on the sort of political front. There many marriages back in the day where you had, a Democrat and a Republican getting married, and then that moderating their approach to life in general. Whereas today, because of this more polarized context, people are tending to marry along similar lines.
So the consequences you're saying are greater than simply they can't find a date for Saturday night.
Jefferson talked about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what I think people don't always realize is that sort of what happens in our love lives and what happens in our families matters not just for ourselves or for our kids, but for the wider country or for our neighborhoods and communities.
And even when there are profound disagreements in those connections, some couples have figured out how to turn the focus to what brought them together in the first place.
We used to scream at each other outside in the hot tub. When politics came up, literally, and where we live, everyone can hear you. And we just this last couple months, we were like, this is a politics-free zone.
Humor has saved us now. Humor, we can now get through a disagreement in about less than a minute by we kind of make the other person crack up.
Others acknowledge repairing fractured relationships will just take time.
It took us 7 or 8 years to get of all this anger. It's going to take us a while to get back to where we were and hopefully improve our relationships and be better off for it. But it's going to take time.
For the Glasgows, their secret for happiness across the divide is focusing on what they have in common.
I firmly believe, legitimately, everybody wants what's best for everybody. And if you come from that position, I just disagree the path that she sees. That's it. Politics is a big part, but so are the kids, so are everything else, so are our interests, so are the things we like about each other, so are, so I mean, that's more than who I voted for.
So if we can figure out a way that we can all still love each other despite big differences like that, I think that's important.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Judy Woodruff in Pueblo, Colorado.